All right, what's going on, boys? It's Keg from Rum Pure Bets. Little UFC 260 main event, co-main event breakdown. Obviously, big fight on the card. We got Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight in the history of the sport, taking on the scariest guy possibly in the history of the sport in Francis Ngannou. For anybody that wants a full card breakdown, Joey and Draft Sheet Title did a great job breaking down every fight over on the DFS side. Check that out so you can get some insight on every fight. But we're going to focus just on the main event and the co-main event. So let's bring up the odds. Right now, Francis Ngannou, the challenger, minus 134. Comeback on Stipe, about plus 115. There's a little buyback on Francis now. He opened up as a minus 180 favorite, went up to minus 225. And then it was basically a steady decline down to about minus 120. And then you started to see a little buyback on Francis, which I expect to continue up until the fight tonight. So we know, obviously, the fight's been building for a long time. First time that these guys squared off, a little less than 3.5 years ago at this point, early 2018. And after that fight, even though Stipe, solved the riddle of Francis Ngannou, you just knew eventually, as long as Stipe kept the belt, they were going to fight again because Francis is a machine. So in that first fight, Stipe knew that he had the cardio advantage. He knew that he would be able to go deep into the fight. He knew that he had a big advantage in grappling in terms of his wrestling. And he had a ton of back class. If you take a look at the opponents that Stipe had beat up until that point, as opposed to the opponents that Francis beat up until that point, it really wasn't even close. So Stipe was in a good spot in that fight. And he knew that he had to survive round one. If he can get out of the first round, him and the world basically felt he would have a better chance as the fight went on, rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, what happens? Francis Ngannou has a brutal adrenaline dump in round one, had absolutely nothing left after that round. And Stipe dominated him basically in every other round. So here they are, 3.5 years later, and what you have to really decide in this fight now is 3.5 years later, is Francis Ngannou still a one-round guy, or can he get into the later rounds of a fight without really gassing? We know that muscles use 3 times more oxygen than fat does. That's why these guys that are jacked tend to gas quickly. So the question you have to ask is, has Ngannou, has he done enough over the last 3.5 years to change up the script? Say that he is a guy that can go into the later rounds. And if so, can he win the fight, right? So where I fall in the debate is, we know that Stipe is the greatest heavyweight in the history of the sport. We know that he is criminally underrated in the betting marketplace. Most times he is an underdog, even in title fights where he's holding the belt. So he doesn't get a ton of respect from bookmakers. Look no further than the Daniel Cormier fight to make that case. So, we know that Stipe is going to have the cardio to go 5 rounds, like he always does. But, it's worth noting that Stipe, and I said this last night on Sports Grid, in his last 4 fights has taken more damage than the rest of his career combined. So I think that, Miocic has had problems with the eye. He's become way more hittable in the last 4 years than he was when he was 35 years old in the first fight. And I think that Francis Ngannou gets a bad rap, man, for the cardio. Yes, he knocks people out in 30 seconds. Just because that happens doesn't mean that he's prepared now a few years later to go deep into a fight. So do we not think that Francis Ngannou has not been working on his cardio for the last 3 years? Obviously he has. Do we not think that in almost every practice session that he had preparing for fighters, that in some type of way he wasn't looking down the line and preparing to eventually fight Stipe, who is the champion? I don't buy it, man. Based on all the interviews I read, all the video I've seen from a lot of his teammates, he's been working on his cardio and his takedown defense with this fight in the back of his head for over 3 years. So what happens if he's not a 5-minute quitter? What happens if he can go 4 rounds? Then what? Then Stipe's in trouble. That's what. So I was on Miocic in the first fight. This one feels different to me. It does. I'm going to take the chance on the short price for the most dangerous guy on the entire roster. You're never going to see these odds again. He'll be a bigger favorite even if he fights John Jones, probably. But aside from John, he's going to be a $3 favorite in every single fight he fights in if he can get past Stipe. And it feels like tonight's his time. I hate to say it because I really love Stipe. Now, there are multiple ways you can approach the fight. If you think Ngannou can only get it done in round 1, you take him by round 1 knockout somewhere around plus 200, right? If you think he's only got 1 round in him, and then it's going to swing heavily in Stipe's favor, just like the first fight. If that's what you believe, take Ngannou by knockout in round 1 and hedge and come back the other way on Stipe by decision at plus 430, which is what I think the average price is right now. I'm going to just take him on the money line. And to be fair, I screwed up. I should have taken him by knockout at even money. I don't know why I didn't do that. I took him on the money line at minus 120. I would suggest to you, take him by knockout at even money. I'm gonna take a shot on the short price and say that he gets it done. So give me Francis Ngannou by knockout in the main event. All right, co-main event. Tyron Woodley Vicente Luque. Right now, odds on FanDuel, Luque minus 255. Comeback on Woodley plus 210. Here's what I think about that. I think that Tyron Woodley is the most overrated champion in the history of the 170-pound division in the UFC. That's what I think. The guy has lost every round that he has fought in the last 3.5 years. 15 rounds, 3 5-round main events, all went to decision. He lost every round. Now, I know that people that like slob all over Woodley's knob are going to say, yeah, but bro, he fought the three best guys in the division in Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, and Gilbert Burns. Is that true? Yes, it's true. But it doesn't change my mind at all. Vicente Luque is the quote-unquote easiest competitor that Tyron Woodley has fought in probably 6 years, and Vegas still made him a plus 210 dog for a reason. He's cheeks. He's washed. He's done, in my opinion. I faded him the last 4 fights, and I won 3 out of 4. I just don't believe in him, man. I just don't. I think styles make fights, okay? And I think that Vicente Luque is a god-awful matchup for Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley, if you've watched one fight, you've seen them all, right? All he does is walk backwards until his back is against the cage. Once that happens, he looks for that one punch knockout. And if he doesn't get it, he loses, period, full stop. The guy in the last 75 minutes in the octagon has thrown something like 25 significant strikes in 75 minutes. That's hard to do. So I think that Vicente Luque is a problem. Because why? First of all, he has an iron chin, right? He wears punches extremely well. Nobody has really been able to just drop him. Even Nico Price, who hits like a truck, fought him twice. And Luque wore every punch well, if we're being fair. Now, does Tyron Woodley have that knockout power if he hits the button? He does. But has there been any indication that Luque won't be able to handle that power based on what we've seen in the cage? No, there hasn't been at all. So I think where the fight is won and lost for me is the only way that Vicente Luque looks bad is when you pressure him and he is fighting off the back foot. If you can do that, you can find success. Nico Price found success in that second fight, doing exactly that. He brought the striking exchanges to Luque, and, Luque had some issues. That was a war up until he won the fight. But if you don't pressure him and you let him walk forward and dictate striking exchanges, he is a monster. He is an entirely different fighter and really hard to deal with. Well, I mean, that plays right into what Tyron Woodley does as a fighter. Luque will dictate the pace, he will dictate the exchanges, and he will be walking forward for the whole fight. The only thing Tyron Woodley does in the cage now is avoid damage at all costs. He does not want to get hit anymore. Just watch any of the fights in the last 3.5 years. It is clear he does not want to take any more damage. He will just run from damage and try to throw that occasional bomb, hoping for a knockout, okay? That's why, in my opinion, I think that Luque will win by decision. Now, there's going to be bombs thrown. Luque's a heavy hitter. Tyron Woodley, if he hits the button, is a heavy hitter. But I think that he tries to avoid damage to the point that he just loses decisions really badly. And that's what happened in the last 3 fights. Didn't win a round, lost by decision. I think that happens tonight again. So I put a play on the spreadsheet, a different play for the Rum Pure subscribers. And I'll keep that there. But for the purposes of the video, my opinion is your best chance to cash the fight is to take Luque by decision at in that plus 150 range. FanDuel has plus 135. If you shop around, there are plus 150s out there, and that's the way I would go. Could he drop Woodley? Yes. Could Woodley drop him if one of the 10 punches he throws tonight hits the button? Yes. Is it likely? In my opinion, no. So give me Vicente Luque by decision, plus 150. And that's a wrap, boys. We'll go with Ngannou by knockout at even money. We'll go with Luque by decision at plus 150. If you want a full card breakdown, Joey and the DFS guys did a great job in the morning. Go over to the Run Pure Sports YouTube page. Check that video out. You could at least see where they're at on every fight on the card. And that's it. I'll be live in an hour for subscribers all night long, live betting and sweating the action all night. And then you'll see me and Coop tomorrow, like normal. We're up 100 units in 5 weeks. Like, people will say, well, that's complete bullshit, but that's the truth. Go back and watch those shows. We're up 100 units. So it should be fun. It's going to be a shit show because it's a dirt race at Bristol, which we've never seen before. But we're here, boys. So we'll get it done somehow. And aside from that, I'm out. I hope your action runs pure this weekend. I hope you bang those winners for the boys. And if you're not a subscriber, you should be. We're up over 50 units on the site. I don't know why you're not at this point. Use promo code BETS25 off, 25% off the first month. Instead of paying $60, you'll pay $45. We just banked 3 units in golf this morning on the sheet. So I don't know why you wouldn't come over. If you are a subscriber, I'll see you in about an hour. So like I said, aside from that, I hope your action runs pure this weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Later.